Hey there, I am back with another deck review. Today, going to be looking at the Makers Blacksmith edition from Dan and Dave Buck over at Art of Play. This deck is inspired by the makers, and these are the individuals who in some way influenced the creation or the direction of our civilization, whether it be through their direct contributions or simply through their influence. Let's see how that theme comes to life in this really stunning deck of cards here. So starting with the tuck case of this Blacksmith edition, it is a black matte tuck case, but you'd hardly know it because it is absolutely covered by foiling all the way around, as you can see. On the front here, it is gold and silver foil. Has a lot of copy on it, a lot of words, kind of reminiscent of, late 1800s or early 1900s ads where they would just write everything on there. So you've got, small batch, 14 featured makers, reference to the fact there's going to be 14 different makers featured in this deck. Special reserve, revered quality for all beholders, made true, 52, the 52 cards in the deck, forged in the USA, and then crafted for the order of the makers by the Buck Brothers and Company, tribute to the many worldly doers. So all that writing is done in silver foil, with a nice embossing to it to give it a little bit of an extra feel. And then the rest of the detail here is all gold foil. There's lots of line work and scroll work going all the way around and forming different borders. You'd have that spade pip here in the center. Just a really beautifully done design for the front of the tuck case. And here it is kind of up close so you can see just some of the detail that went into it. Really beautifully done. As you turn to the sides, on one side you've got designed by the studio of Chad Michael, so the studio who designed this deck, and then produced by Dan and Dave Industries, of course. Bottom in gold foil has the ad copy for Dan and Dave as well as a barcode, and then the top you've got Dan and Dave Buck Industries with a little bit of gold foil detail around the sides, and then the silver foil with the 4 different suits there. The back here is going to be the back design of the cards, but done up in gold and silver foil rather than the gold ink that we're going to look at in a second. So we'll look at more of that detail as we look at the back cards in the back of the cards in a second. And then you have a red custom tuck seal here. It's a really cool wrap around, kind of wraps around all the way to the front of the deck, reminiscent of old kind of tax stamps. And you can see here it's got a mention of the Buck Brothers and Company, and then as you turn it over here, it has what looks like kind of handwriting to mention the small batch here. So it mentions the actual printing date and then machined by Hindelberg, batch number 2. So kind of a cool touch there. As you open it up, you have a little bit more detail on the front, or on the front flap here. 14 featured makers, produced by the Buck twins for all, and then made with reverence for the highest order. More here on these inner flaps. So you have one crafted under scrutiny, Chad Michael, and then a Dan and Dave Industries logo there. And then you also have gold foil printing on the interior of the tuck case as well. More words, more copy here mentioning, Buck Brothers and Company, made true, small batch, etc. And that printing goes all the way through, kind of make it out there at the bottom. So really beautifully done tuck case. Lots of really nice detail on this, really nice foiling. That's the tuck. Let's get to the cards now. And we'll start as usual with the back design. And here it is. It's a white card, but it's got black and gold ink on it. So the black background, again, you can kind of barely make it out because it's covered by the gold ink. But you got more, words and copy on here. So 14 featured makers, revered quality, worldly tribute, order of the maker, and then that same copy is reflected on the other side to make a 2-way back design. And then the gold ink in the back makes just a ton of intricate designs all the way through. So in the center here, you've got kind of a globe with a radial pattern going out, with the swords coming out on either side, making that central border. You have a spade pip and a crown up here at the top as well, and just tons of line work all the way through. And then you have a gold border squaring off around the outside, and of course that medium to thin white poker border on the outside as well. So really nicely done back to the cards. I think my one knock on this is when you hold it a little bit at a distance, you really kind of lose a lot of that detail. There's almost too much gold ink on it. You'll see here, if I kind of hold it at arm's length, the details kind of become a little bit muddled, and it's hard to appreciate just how much detail there is in this. So definitely a back design that's much better suited for kind of close inspection or appreciating it as an art piece, I guess, as opposed to, a deck of cards that's getting really high use. But still a really beautiful and well appreciated back design. So that's the back design. Let's look at the cards. Here are your two jokers. They're almost identical. They feature the same design in the middle, but different designs here in the corner. So one of them features an eye with kind of a radial pattern, and then the other one features a pair of crossed keys. But both of them in the center feature the first of our 14 makers. And that picture is going to be identical. So zoom in on it here so you can see it has the Marauder as the first of the 14. And the Marauder, kind of an invader. You can see him done up here, a little bit of a Day of the Dead or Mexican art style there, very interesting, with the flowers over his eyes, for example. And then around the outside, you've got Latin phrase, I think it's omnia mors aequat. And then the English translation here, death makes all things equal. And the Latin phrase again on the other side. So that beautiful black and white line drawing almost looks like it's framed up by a stained glass window behind them, but really intricate design here, and a good follow, from the style of the back design of the cards as well, with all that line work. There's your two jokers. You get two other ad cards as well, one for dananddave.com and one for Art of Play. Wish they'd thrown in a gaff card of some sort, but you get two ad cards instead. And then we get into the cards. So 13 more makers to go on this one, and the first of them is going to show up on the Ace of Spades, and that's the Wanderer. So it's first of 14. I know we've already looked at one other one, but first of 14, the Wanderer, truth in spades, made true. And there's your Marauder there sitting, or the Wanderer rather, sitting there in the center, and then that stained glass window effect behind him, making up an enlarged spade pip there in the center. You have the kind of tall, skinny custom font A for the index there, and then a really tiny spade pip underneath. So there's your Ace of Spades. And as you go through the number cards, they're going to have custom pips in the center as well. These kind of remind me of the style of like a Celtic knot or something like that. They're really cool styling to them, and they're also done in kind of custom arrangements here as you flip through the different numbers. So there are your spade pips and all your number cards. And then you get to the court cards. So the last 12 makers are all going to be featured on the 12 court cards, as you might have guessed. And each one is kind of individual. So you have a little label on the side. You can see here on the jack, it says he's the Smith. He's holding a hammer. So you've got the Smith. The Harlot is the Queen. And then the King is the Monarch. Beautiful black and white line drawing design. Tons of detail in there. Just a lot to appreciate with those designs. Kind of like the back designs, I think, when you hold them at a distance, they get a little bit muddled and just a little bit harder to make out, but up close, you can really appreciate how beautiful those designs are. Then you get to the Ace of Diamonds, and it's going to be now in a red color. It's kind of a deeper crimson, almost maroon color to it. But there's your diamond pips. And then you get to the court cards here. So you've got the Jack, the Jeweler. The Queen is the Abbess, who runs a monastery or a nunnery. And then the King is the Prophet. There are your three diamond courts. I really like how that line drawing look comes out in the red ink there. And then here are your club courts with the Miner, the Arborist, and the Architect. So there are those. And then down through your club pips. Again, really reminds me of a Celtic knot there. And then your heart courts are going to feature the Armorer, the Chaste, and the General. This is probably my favorite design of the court card. I love that eye patch or kind of scarred eye there, and then smoking the pipe. Really beautiful grizzled look to that guy. And then down through your hearts. So that is the deck. The handling, they handle really, really nicely. It's printed by USBCC on their crushed stock. Like all day-to-day decks, they fan really beautifully. They're done on this super thin stock. I mean, it is a really, really thin and springy stock. So I'd question, how much they might hold up, but they handle beautifully right out of the box. So no complaints at all with the handling. It's really, really nice. What do you think of the deck overall? It is definitely a deck you could use for pretty much anything. It handles beautifully for cardistry, very readable and usable for gameplay, and one that you can absolutely appreciate as art. So very functional deck, definitely usable for a lot of different things. I really do like the deck. I think that some of the designs can look a little bit muddled if you're trying to use them for some purpose. And so I think, maybe you don't get nearly as much out of them if you're using them for magic or for gameplay. But I'm more of an art collector with the decks. So for me, this deck really just hits the mark. And you combine that beautiful artwork in here with just a stunning tuck case. It's a deck that really hits the mark for me. So big fan of this deck. I'll put a link to where you can check this out. They are still available on Art of Play. So I'll put a link up to where you can check those out if you are interested. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's more decks you want to see. Subscribe for more deck reviews, unboxings, and other content. Always putting up new stuff. And I will see you for the next one.